Hi, my name is Sarah Quinn. I'm the Vice President at Connect Media. I'm joined today by Joe DeTizio, Associate Director of ESG Client Services at EBI Consulting, joining today to talk about ESG and risk management. Joe, thanks so much for joining us.
Nice to see you again.
You too. So we're chatting about risk management today, and among new clients, I would love to know what the general level of awareness and understanding is for the long-term risks facing commercial properties and how you work to educate or inform your clients as we're talking about risk management.
Sure, great question. So when looking at awareness and understanding of risk, it's always different on a client-to-client basis, right? And it's not something that one certain sector of client has a better advantage or understanding of over another. When we talk with our clients about risk, the first thing we want to understand is what's their motivating factor for starting to incorporate this into their decision making. Is this something that is a motivator for ESG and understanding your portfolio and your assets better in terms of getting a better score from ESG and improving that understanding? Or is this something that they want to move at proactively in terms of understanding that risk to their bottom line, understanding how to act upon that risk and mitigate it in terms of any actions we can take, but mostly it's going to always be a case-by-case basis. And we work with our clients throughout the entire life cycle of risk understanding and risk mitigation to identify how we can best assist them in terms of identifying and assessing it, or how we can assist with mitigating, whether it's at a property or portfolio level.
Once you've done that client education, how are you helping to identify and quantify the risks? And do the clients have a clearer understanding of what they need to do in order to take action?
Sure. So as you were saying, the first step is identifying and quantifying the risk, right? So we have a few different options that we perform almost on a daily basis now in terms of the level of detail and depth of that risk at the site level, as well as the portfolio level, and that is nationally. So the first step is to assess that risk, understand and internalize where action needs to be taken. And throughout the rest of this process with the EBI risk team, we are able to recommend, again, assessments with third-party mitigation measures and other options for the client to start to implement into their decision-making to reduce that risk, protect the portfolio, and at the end of the day, protect their operating income.
Risk management has been a long-standing part of environmental assessments and the way that we approach all commercial properties. But it seems as though ESG is, as a trend and something that's really been, dialed in on the commercial real estate world, has pushed risk assessment further. Can you talk a little bit about how that's shaping what clients are doing?
Absolutely. So, at EBI, we value, obviously, our due diligence services and understanding risk, whether it's at the site level, right? Environmental site assessments we've been performing for over 30 years. Everyone accounts for that within their due diligence in either A, acquisitions, or B, their existing portfolio. The second level is the property risk, right? And that's why people engage for property conditions reports or property conditions assessments during due diligence for new acquisitions. But what we've seen and how most of our clients are and how they're operating is there's a third arm to that, which is climate risk and understanding the physical climate risks today and due to climate change that will impact that asset. And if that needs to be something they need to improve upon or mitigate, right? So we look at, when we talk due diligence and acquisitions, this has a three-headed monster nowadays. Instead of 5, 6, even 7 years ago, we might be singularly performing the property conditions and site assessments for environmental, but now we are strongly recommending and actively performing that third portion of it, which is what we're talking about today, right? The physical risk to those assets. And of course, internalizing those actionable steps as to, over the long or short-term hold period for our clients, what needs to be addressed. And again, quantifying exactly how that's going to impact them and for budgetary allocations and things along those lines.
So ESG goals have led clients to be more proactive with their risk management?
Yes, I would say that ESG is, behaving as a forcing mechanism here where clients, before ESG became such a hot topic, were potentially looking at things like this, right? Is there anything pertaining to flood, seismic, wildfire going to impact our site? And is there anything there that we need to account for? Now with ESG, almost mandating it, right? Depending on which framework you're reporting to, or of course, with everything we've heard with the SEC and aligning with TCFD and expecting that type of disclosure, it is now becoming extremely more prominent. And as I was saying before, it's good. It's good for business. It's good in understanding where there's exposure to your business model and where we can mitigate that risk, because we wouldn't be buying buildings that are potentially going to crumble or sites that are severely polluted, right? Because that is a risk to our business model. We also wouldn't buy a site that, whether it's 5, 10, or 15 years down the line, almost is definitively going to be impacted by a flood or by significant storms, so intensified storm intensity, wind, the flood. All of these things account for this holistic understanding of the property, holistic understanding of those risks, and again, how to mitigate those risks to protect yourself.
Can clients be doing their own risk mitigation in-house, or is it something that has to be outsourced to a company like you?
So in terms of physical risk due to climate change, right? Again, those stressors that I keep mentioning, like seismic, wildfire, flooding, those can be internalized. There are data aggregators and data aggregation companies such as EBI that we can provide back just results. Here's your understanding of risk. Here's your level of risk. But from my recommendation and from our experience with our clients, there's still that integral understanding that what do we do with that risk? Where there's that gap that internally facing, for the most part, we don't have that, our clients don't have that capability to have civil engineers, GIS scientists, mechanical engineers, review that risk exposure, determine what should be acted upon and when, right? We need to prioritize the portfolio, not just across the grid, deploy different services or different mitigation measures, right? We want to pragmatically and cost effectively identify that risk and then mitigate that risk. So yes, you can internalize that risk assessment. When it turns into risk assessment and then mitigation, there will always be a professional need there. And so me with the rest of my team have developed our service offerings to be full life cycle, right? We're going to help our clients get that risk understanding, but as well as know when and where they need to act upon it. So to hopefully answer your question in a kind of short-winded response, yes, you could internalize it, but eventually at some point there will always be a need for third-party or professional assistance.
There's a lot of value in calling in the experts when it's time.
Yes, from a cost-effective standpoint and a time sensitivity standpoint, right? We can perform it all quickly, efficiently, and of course work with your team as an internal external advisor, right, in helping you get to where you need to be.
Great. What's the ROI proposition as we're talking about risk management? As you're talking to your clients, how are you explaining that ROI?
So with the physical risk specifically, not speaking on like transition risk and regulatory requirements pertaining to energy efficiency and things along those lines, with physical risk, it's not so much as an ROI, and that's not really how we look at this for our clients. It's more of a, how do we spend money to mitigate significant loss, right? Same as like an insurance policy, right? By looking at everything up front, using your capital to mitigate that risk exposure, we're able to pretty much not guarantee, but ensure that we're not going to have serious damages or serious fiscal loss due to damages over an extended period of time. So you can look at it as an ROI, or you can look at it as we're spending money now to ensure that we're saving money later. But either way we look at it, the biggest thing is that identification of where you're exposed. And of course, that next step of reducing that exposure.
Great. Well, Joe, thank you so much for joining us today. This has been really enlightening, and I appreciate you joining us at Connect Media.
Thanks, Sarah. It was great talking to you again.
You too.